Welcome to the Wayne Public Library's virtual author chat. My guest today is Elizabeth John. Elizabeth John creates tender romances with a touch of intrigue. Elizabeth gets up and writes at sunrise before her busy day as an elementary school teacher kicks off. Admittedly, she's a TV and movie junkie and has noble intentions to practice yoga daily. In her spare time, she can be found walking her two rescue dogs, researching her family's ancestry, gardening, or relaxing at the beach with her nose in a good book. She is a member of the New Jersey Romance Writers, the Romance Writers of America, Liberty State Fiction Writers, and Sisters in Crime. Welcome, Elizabeth. Please tell us a little more about yourself and about your new novel, Backstage Butter Brittle.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and really appreciate that. A little bit about myself. I do write contemporary romance and what I call a cozy romantic suspense. So it's not as gritty as maybe some of the other romantic suspense novels out there. I also, as you said in my bio, am an elementary school teacher. I've taught kindergarten through third grade, and the last few years I've been teaching second grade. I also have two grown-up children who are out of the house and leading their own lives. So gives me more time to write, I guess.
Okay. And your new novel, Backstage Butter Brittle. Can you tell us a little bit about that, when it comes out?
Yeah, it's going to be an ebook, and here's the cover. I love the cover. It's going to come out on July 27th, and it is with the Wild Rose Press, their One Scoop or Two line. And with that series, we had to put something about ice cream, and it had to take place in the summer and have something to do with a body of water. So mine takes place at the New Jersey shore, a fictional town. I got the idea because I go down to Long Beach Island quite often, and there is a theater there. It's called Surflight Theater, and next to it is an ice cream parlor. I thought, wouldn't that be a fun story to write something about the theater? I've been to the theater, like I said, but I've never been to the ice cream parlor. But I used to work for, I don't know if you recall, an ice cream parlor called Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor. It was an old-fashioned ice cream parlor. I worked there for many years all through college. And so I based this story on my experience working at that ice cream parlor. I have a little blurb. I don't know if you would like me to read that.
Absolutely, please.
Okay, so here's the blurb. Her 30th birthday is Anna's deadline to succeed as a theatrical performer, only 6 months away. A crucial audition in her hometown puts her in the path of her ex-boyfriend. After only a few minutes together, she realizes she's missed James. More shocking is that she receives an invitation to help with his family's summer camp theater program. Father James Tucker can't believe the woman he once thought he'd marry is back in town, auditioning at the theater next to his ice cream parlor. He hopes for the impossible, that she'll stay this time. But she wants bright lights, and he leads a simpler life. Can this reunion be their second chance at love?
Sounds fun. You had mentioned that James is a farmer.
Yes.
Is that like a dairy farmer? So that for the ice cream?
Yes. So she grew up in this town, which is not in the town where the theater is. It's a town that's close by, and she actually had gone to his family's theater camp as a child, and his farm is near this town, and his family's farm. So her family, they were very serious together, and like he said, he thought he would marry her, but then her family wound up buying a pizzeria up in North New Jersey, and it was a sudden move, and the long distance and everything, it didn't work out between the two of them. So now she's back in town, and he's very excited to see her again.
Okay. And you said that this was one scoop or two. It's a series. Is it a series with different authors who contribute, and does it only get released in the summertime, or just the theme has to be summer?
It's a theme. They have these series, I'm calling them series. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, there are certain themes. So I think these are the last of them, these one scoop or two. And I know what's happening, and I don't know if that's going to happen with my book. What they do is, after it's been released for a while, they're putting some of them together as like an anthology and putting them into print. So I'm hoping eventually it'll go into print, but right now it's an ebook.
Okay. And I read on your website that the different books that you've written, all contemporary, but some of them are series and some of them are standalone. What do you prefer to write, series or standalone?
Actually, I don't have a preference, but I'm going to confess that I am a disorganized writer. And with the series, ideally, I would like to write what they call a series Bible. And I believe I started it with the Becker Sister Bridal series, which is a series I'm working on right now. I believe I started to write a Bible with the first book, and then I didn't really follow through. And then on the second book, I started to do it again, and again, I didn't follow through. And now I'm working on the third book, and I'm realizing that there is something to do with, because I have recurring characters. One of the characters, I need a specific detail that I know I wrote in the first book in order for it to work in the third book. So, again, I wish that I had written a Bible, and I am determined for the next series to really get much more organized. But that's one of the drawbacks for me with writing a series. But each book in the series, I try to keep as a standalone. So if a reader picks up a book out of order, they don't have to really know what happened in the books before it to enjoy the story. And that's a little tricky when you're writing a series, because each book, for me, I want it to be a standalone. So I don't want to add too much backstory, because for two reasons, actually. One reason is backstory can be a little boring. And also, I don't want to give too much away of the other stories. So it's sort of a fine line. I have to put enough in so that the reader knows, oh, I think there's definitely more here, if they're reading them out of order, but that they can enjoy the story on its own.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense. They should be connected only in as much as they're similar. The characters might cross over, but the plot should be standalone. Yes. In your books, I guess it lends itself to the series concept. Do you have a favorite secondary character in the books that you've written, and do you if you do you foresee writing a novel for that character?
Well, it's funny that you asked that question, because I've actually had that happen, where I have a book that is currently unpublished. I had written it. The working title for that book is called Grave Promises. And I do intend to make that book into a series. And it's about a big Italian family. And there's a character in there that the main character's younger brother, he was a little bit of a comical character. And I really enjoyed his story. And that book I rewrote several times for various reasons. But anyway, I liked him so much that I decided he needed his own book. So that's what I did. And I wrote this book, Judging Joey. And so in the other book, he's not in that other book at all. That's going to be a different character, but he got his own book. And that was the first book I had published.
Judging Joey is your first novel?
It's the first novel I had published. I've written some other books, but
that was the first.
Oh,
Got the call. Yeah.
And that one is, it's about a teacher who, and I tend to like reunion stories. That's another reunion story. Uh, that teacher goes back to her hometown and gets a job in the same school where there's a safety officer who she had a crush on in high school. And she was dreading seeing him again. And when she does see him again, she realizes he doesn't even remember her. And yeah, and he has reasons for it, but that's Joey. So Joey, but when I wrote that book, and I work in a school system, we didn't have safety officers. So that's something I kind of made up. But now in my school, we have safety officers. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Had you heard of them? And that's why you created or no?
Well, at that time, I know there's a program called the DARE program, or at least it was at that point. And I thought, and then in my school where I work, we would have police officers come in like for Halloween and talk about Halloween safety. And in fact, I did put that in that book. But I made it more where this officer would come in, he wasn't in the building all the time, but he was considered their safety officer. So yeah, no, it wasn't such a thing really. And now it's different, but
yes, unfortunately, yes. Can you let us know what you're currently working on?
Yeah, so right now I am working on the third book, like I said, in the Becker Sisters Bridal series. So this is the first one. And there are three sisters, and all the sisters are named after flowers. So the first sister, Lily, I did ask the cover artist if she could put flowers that were lilies in the bouquet. So this is not Lily, the bride. This is just a bride. But on the front and on the back, she put lilies. And the second book is about Rose, and there are roses in the cover. And this one is Forever Keep Your Secret. And the third book, the working title right now is Forever Bury Your Heart. And it's about Chrissy. Her real name is Chrysanthemum, but nobody calls her that. And Chrissy is a serial dater. And Lily, the first sister, her wedding is coming up, and some horrible things start to happen. And Chrissy starts to think that maybe one of these men that she has dated is responsible for these things happening.
Oh, wow. So
yeah.
is it romance or mystery? Is just that combination of romance and mystery?
So that whole series is romantic suspense.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's the third book in that series. And I'm also working on, because a book for the Wild Rose Press is they have a new, again, theme series, if you want to call it. So I'm working on a novella for them. And I have to say, I've never worked on two new books at the same time. Sometimes I'll be working on a book new, but revising another one. But I've never done two completely brand new books at the same time. So this is going to be an experience, and I'll let you know how it turns out.
Okay. Well, good luck with the, school eventually starting. That's, a little bit of a timetable, I guess, to get most of it or all of it done.
Yeah. Well, it's not easy, but I try.
So going back to, the start, what's made you start writing? What inspired you to start writing? Kind of like what originate, what was the original point in your life where you were, I think, all right.
Well, when I was a child, I was an avid reader. And in fact, my first real job was working as a page for the New York Public Library in the Staten Island branches. And they were these two tiny, tiny little branches. And I was reading so much. And the books that I read a lot of different things, but I really concentrated on the romance books. I tend to enjoy them the most. And then, I went to college, and I got to actually have an economics degree, and I worked in banking. But when I had my first child, my son, I I went part-time and cut back on my hours, and I had more time, and I thought, I always considered writing. I said, now is the time. I'm not working full-time. So I started to write a book. I had no idea what I was doing. And one day I happened to get a local newspaper, and they had one of those like colored insert magazines that they put in. And when I pulled it out, I couldn't believe my eyes. There were romance covers all over. And there was this huge article about romance writers right here in New Jersey. And they even had the phone number of the president of the New Jersey romance writers in the article. I mean, I couldn't believe this. And I thought, well, this is my opportunity. And I was really nervous calling this writer, and I'm going to say her name because she's actually still writing today. Her name is Donna Fletcher. I believe she writes historical romances. I called Donna, and she was so welcoming. And I wound up going to the meeting, and I joined the group, and I've been a member ever since. So that's sort of how I started writing, just being a reader and just wanting to try it. And then I was lucky enough to come across a wonderful group.
Wow, that's a great story. How that's really interesting to put the author's phone number straight into the newspaper. Wow.
Yeah, and I remember shaking when I was calling her because she was a famous author. They were all famous authors in this magazine. So yeah.
Good that they were pushing that, the genre, because it doesn't always get enough recognition, but locally especially, great that they were advertising for them. Approximately how long do you think it takes you to write a book, a novella, or a standard length book?
Well, I'm a very slow writer, and I also find that because I work full time, I'm not able to write as fast as I would like. So it takes me a long time. But by the time I get the whole book written and then revised and ready, to submit, it could take me a year. So I'm trying to speed that up a little bit because that, I know readers want to see these books, and people are asking me, when's the third book coming out? And in the series, and I'm still writing it because it takes me a long time.
Well, I know readers want things. I mean, they read things so fast sometimes, and I'm always in the back of my head, like, do you know how long it took that author to write that? It's great that you love them and you read it so quickly, but that takes months, if not years. So, I mean, it's great, but they don't factor in the creativity aspect
Right. Plus,
and the length of it.
plus research, because I have to do the research too on some things. Like right now, with the Chrissy's book, she actually owns, or well, they all own it, but she actually runs the florist, which they wound up setting up. So the other two sisters run the bridal shop, and she runs the florist. And I needed to do, I mean, I know a lot about flowers, but I don't know anything really about what it's like to be a florist. So I've made arrangements to talk to a local florist, and she says, come on in, and you can even talk to brides. So I plan on doing that. It had to be certain time, and like not Mother's Day because they're too busy. So I'm hopefully next month, before I go back to work, I can really sit down and get some interesting information for research.
Does sound like fun research too, to be able to get behind the scenes. We probably don't think about what it takes to run a floral shop. What is the most difficult part of writing for you, do you feel?
Well, I think I might have said this already in a way, but it's finding the time to write. Years ago, I started getting up at 5:30 before I had to get ready for work, and I would just write. If I could get an hour in the morning, that was pretty much my writing time, because by the time I get home after work, I'm just too tired, or, there's something else I have to do. And again, my kids are grown, so now I don't have to worry about my kids. But when they were little, I had things to do with the kids and all. So it's just finding the time. Now I'm finding I have more time, but I still write in the morning because that's my best time. So I try to get it in, and I attempt to write after work, but yeah, I'm usually just too tired.
And do you plot your books? I think with the Bible you mentioned earlier, but in general, like, just even like a basic outline, or no?
I call myself a planter because I do a little plotting and then I write, on the seat of my pants. I try to do what I call a storyboard. In fact, in my basement, I have these huge whiteboards on the walls, and I try to make like a grid with the chapters, and I write sticky notes, and I try to do that. But I have to say, with each project, I write a little differently. For example, with Judging Joey, I actually wrote this longhand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was at the beach a lot, and I was just writing longhand, and I had notebooks. And then for this one, I think I plotted out a little bit more. And with this one, Forever Keep Your Secret, I actually just pantsed on this one because I wrote a lot of that book during something and New Jersey Romance Writers does in February. They have a writing challenge called JRoRIMO. And the goal is to write 30,000 words in a month. So that's what I did for that book. I just kept writing. I had some words already written, and then I just kept writing, and I made the goal. But afterward, I realized that I had to do a lot of revisions because I just kept writing. And in fact, there was something like a legal issue because Rose in that story had, well, I don't want to give it away because it's kind of a secret, but she decided she needed something to happen, and it couldn't happen the way I wanted it to happen because it just legally it wouldn't have happened. And one of my friends is a lawyer, and she's like, nope, it's not going to work. So I had to really revise that. So in that case, I wish I had done my research before I wrote all that. So yeah, so it depends on the project, but I try to do a little plotting and then not so much.
And what was the most surprising thing that you've learned about the craft of writing from writing your books?
You know what? I really like to revise, which I never thought I would say that. I find the most challenging part actually is writing the first draft. And I think it's because I don't really plot, like I don't do a detailed outline. And so my first draft is almost like a detailed outline. And then when I go back and revise, and it takes me several passes through, I find I'm layering more, I'm understanding the characters more. And, the story actually gets better the more I revise. So yeah, so that to me is the most fun, I think.
That is surprising, I have to say. not often.
I know.
It's the revision. No.
Oh.
That first draft usually that they don't want to make the revisions. Do you work with an agent or an editor?
I don't have an agent. I have two publishing houses that I'm with, so I have two different editors. I would like to get an agent eventually, but right now, I don't really need one. I would like to get one though eventually.
You mentioned the Wild Rose Press. What is your second publisher?
The Becker Sister Bridal series is with the Soulmate Publishing.
Okay. And so you've published with publishers, with more indie publishers. Do you do you have anything that you've independently published, or are you interested in that, or not at all?
I might eventually, but right now, these are two small presses, they call them.
Yes.
So I'm sticking with the traditional publishing houses, but I would never say never. I might do something like that, especially if I write something that I know, I would like it to go out there, but maybe their publishing houses aren't interested, or maybe it's not really the right fit. So,
because of my error, I apologize. So it's
no worries.
and the larger publishing houses, and then these are the smaller presses, and then the indie publishers are the independently published authors, like that publish their own stuff, or also that umbrella that also includes like smaller like publishers that might not just be their own stuff. Could you just explain?
Yeah. So when somebody says they're indie pub, they're self pub. They do the writing. Many times they will hire editors, and it depends on how involved they are with their own book. They might actually do all the formatting and everything on their own, or they could hire people to do that. And the difference with that is they're not with a publishing house, so they have more control over the final product. The covers, they might do their own cover, they might hire a cover artist. So people who say they're indie pubs, that's the route they're taking. Whereas small presses and the larger publishing houses, that you're under a contract with them, and it's you might have some input on the covers. Like I was pretty lucky with all my covers, even with both publishing houses, they really worked with me. But you might not have that with another publishing house. They might say, no, this is the cover, and you might not have a choice.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I've spoken to both. People publish with small presses, people publish with larger publishing houses, and also many indie published authors. And it's just kind of like give an overview. We all know that, like, well, not we all know, because I will be honest, I'm as a librarian, not everyone knows. A lot of people don't focus in on publishers. As librarians, we kind of know the big publishing houses, and but they have different. Even within those, they have different divisions and different imprints and different presses. So it's a whole world, is what I'm saying. So just to kind of give a little bit of a background. So thank you so much for explaining that, so that the audience out there kind of gets an idea of it's not just two groupings. It's not like you get published, big publish, and the other everyone else is indie. Though there's this middle group of like small presses that are just they're not these not as big as the what is it now, six publishing houses.
I think, yeah, or even 5. I think it's
or 5.
Yeah, they seem like they're getting smaller, and they're merging, and
yes.
Yeah.
So I've asked this of others. Do you ever read your reviews?
I do. Sometimes I completely forget about going and checking, and then I'll, for some reason it'll hit me. I'm like, oh, I should go check. And I do. I would really love, and I'm just saying this to all the readers out there. We authors would love an honest review, because reviews, they, especially with Amazon and with their algorithms, they don't recognize a book until it hits a certain amount of reviews. So the more reviews we could get, the better those algorithms work. So yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate that I mean, of course, I like the 5-star reviews, but I've been pretty fortunate, but I would love to get more reviews.
Okay. Okay. And you've mentioned, well, in your bio, all the writers groups. How important was it or is it to have a writers group, to be part of a writers group or more than one? And do you have critique partners?
I think, well, as I said, because I joined in New Jersey Romance Writers, that really helped me, it just find out how to get my book out there and how to write a story. So I think groups are so important there, and there are many, and with, with the pandemic, it kind of opened up a different world too. There's so much more out there now online and on like webinars, and there's so much material and resources available that I would definitely recommend joining some kind of group or getting even on Facebook, those kind of groups. There's so many out there. And yes, I do have critique. They're partners, but they're not together. Like there's these two people who I call my critique partners are, they're separate entities. And it's really important, I think, to bounce off your work off at least one or two people who know people who know what they're doing. So these are fellow authors, and they know what to look for, and you want someone who is going to really give you a critique, some positive things, and maybe finding out where some of your weaknesses are in the story.
Okay. And what advice would you give to a new writer that's just starting out?
I would definitely say, again, if you're either way, if you're going to go self-pub, indie pub, or the traditional way, learn your craft. Because if you do decide to go traditional and you're getting rejections, it may be because your craft needs some work, and you might get a form rejection, or you might get a letter from an editor who takes the time to tell you where your novel or whatever you're writing can improve. So I would definitely, you're not going to sell if you need a lot of work with your craft. And then if you're deciding to go indie pub, it's also important that story structure, how to, do dialogue and just grammar. It's important because you might put things out there and then maybe you're not getting good reviews, and maybe your reviews are giving you a pattern of, certain things. You could see some of your weaknesses in that regard too. So that would be my main, I guess, piece of advice. Learn the craft and network with other writers, join those writing groups and stuff.
Okay. This is what I say. If there's any questions, if anybody wants to write in the chat, I will read the question to Elizabeth. While you're typing, I always ask a fun question, and you're fun, usually based on something you've put in your bio. And in your bio, you mentioned that you are a TV and movie junkie. So am I. What's your favorite TV series or movie? And what was the last thing you binge watched?
Ooh, you know what? I like so many that I really don't have any favorites. But my tastes are really vary. So in fact, I just watched a cute rom-com the other day with Jennifer Lopez. I think it was called Marry Me. I enjoy the rom-coms, and then I do watch a lot of true crime and those kind of shows. So yeah, I can't really say I have a favorite. Binge, I do binge watch a lot. Right now I'm actually binge watching a show called Pennyworth, which I just kind of came across, and it's very intense. yeah, I'm enjoying it. But again, complete opposite from a sweet rom-com, you know.
So what streamer is Pennyworth on?
That's on HBO Max, I think. And it's a story about the series, the Batman series. Alfred is the butler. It's a story about Alfred.
Okay, yes, I did see it. I'm not actually watched it. I did see it on HBO Max listed. Oh, and is it really good? Is it?
I'm enjoying it. I think the storyline's great, the acting's great. It's pretty violent, um, which was surprising. I didn't expect that. I would say it's a combination of Sopranos meets Game of Thrones and
Okay.
Gotham.
Wow, that's violence. That's a lot of violence.
Yeah, it's pretty violent, but you would recognize some of the actors. It has really good actors in it, and yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Okay, I might have to take a look. I might have to take a look. Um, well, Elizabeth, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, for joining the chat. It's been really fun chatting with you, and I wish you all the best of luck with your new book, with the one that's coming out, I guess it's next week.
Yeah,
And with the third in the series that you're working on, and your novella, which you're working on this summer. Um, Again, thank you for joining us.
thank you. I really appreciate it.